Wow, it is good to see this crowd here this morning. I think probably this may be the biggest crowd, the mostest people that I've seen in this church for a regular service. I think it might be, right?
Good looking bunch, aren't they?
Oh, good looking.
Except for one or two, but the rest of them look great.
That's enough out of
Yes.
you.
Hey, Gio, they make me wear this dress.
Yeah. Okay.
Good to have each and every one of you, and I want you to just make yourselves at home and just be free in the Lord. If God would lead you at any time to go to this altar, to come up here to pray, you make your way right on up here. Don't worry about what's going on, what he's doing, or I'm doing, or anybody else is doing. You mind the Lord, whatever it is. That's the important part. Okay, well, you know, last week one day I come in out of the barn, yeah, and there was a message for it, said you got a message on the machine. Of course, I never know what's coming off. Come on there, it said, this Dio. And he said he's going to be in town this week. And he asked me, he said, would you like to have a good-looking young man to come and to maybe sing a few songs for you and maybe to speak a little bit? And it kind of took me by surprise, you know. And I thought about it. I thought a lot about it. Where is it? Is he yet to come?
The good-looking one's going to show up.
I thought he might be.
Yeah.
I thought he might be yet to come.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I was pleased to. He said, would it be okay, or would I want it? And I said, absolutely. We need a break. You people need a break. That's for sure.
What you're saying is they're tired of you and it's time to get something different, that's all.
That's what they said. Go to it, brother.
At least for this morning anyway. Amen. Are you glad to be in church this morning?
Amen.
Me too. I thought I'd never get here. I'm not used to having to wait on one woman's enough, then there's two, then there's three, then there's four. Hadn't been for you, man, we'd have never made it. I'm telling you right now. Good to hear your piano playing. Are you happy in the Lord?
Amen.
Me too. I'm not always happy about my situation, but I can tell you what, I can be happy in the Lord no matter what comes. And here we go. I'm happy in the Lord anyway, and it really doesn't matter what comes my way today. I'm gonna wear a smile, hold my head up high and say, I'm happy in the Lord anyway. A storm is raging in my life right now, but to Satan's oppression I refuse to bow. I'm gonna say to him, get thee behind me today, 'cause I'm happy in the Lord anyway. I'm happy in the Lord anyway, and it really doesn't matter what comes my way today. I'm gonna wear a smile, hold my head up high and say, I'm happy in the Lord anyway. But you know, Satan, he doesn't want us to be happy, does he? Now you know Satan, he'll try to get you down, 'cause he just loves to take a smile and turn it upside down. But to Christ you have the power to send him on his way. You can be happy in the Lord anyway. I'm happy in the Lord anyway, and it really doesn't matter what comes my way today. I'm gonna wear a smile, hold my head up high and say, I'm happy in the Lord. And you can try it if you want to. I'm happy in the Lord anyway. It really doesn't matter. And it really doesn't matter what comes my way today. I'm gonna wear a smile, hold my head up high and say, I'm happy in the Lord. Try it with me. I'm happy in the Lord. I'm happy in the Lord. And it really doesn't matter. And it really doesn't matter what comes my way today. I'm gonna wear a smile, hold my head up high and say, I'm happy in the Lord anyway. I'm happy in the Lord anyway. I'm happy in the Lord anyway. fun with the preacher last night. We were going through songs, and I had this one medley that I wanted to do really bad, and it has about 4 different hymns on it. We tried, I think, for an hour to figure out what all 4 of those hymns were. Never did. So I figure find one that you know and stick with it. And you know this one, I think. If you want to help me sing along too. Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. Well, I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by God, I'll fly away. Just a few more weary days and then I'll fly away to a land where joys will never end. I'll fly away. Well, I'll fly away, oh glory, fly away. When I die, hallelujah, bye-bye, I'll fly away. Well, I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, bye-bye, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, bye-bye, I'll fly away. Now, Pamela, I could have had you do this for me, except you were busy on the phone with my mother last night. Now, I don't know what she was telling you. I hope it was something good. It was something good? All right. If it's from my mom, it probably is. Mom's up in Michigan. And I have to check up on her every day. Every day. And then I have to check up on my dad every day. You know that's true. I try to do that every day. You know why I do that? I hope that when I actually get old, like the pastor, that someone will check up on me every day too. I'm glad that no matter what valley I go through, for the the God of the good times is still God in the bad times. The God of the day is still God in the night. How many believe that this morning? I mean, really do you? Boy, sometimes it's hard. We live by faith and not by sight, right? You talk of faith when you're up on the mountain. Oh, but talk comes so easy when life's at its best. It's down in the valley, through the trials and temptations. That's when your faith is really put to the test. Come on, help me, choir. For the God of the mountain is still God in the valley. When things go wrong, you make them right. Sound good? And the God of the good times is still God in the bad times. The God of the day is still God in the night. The God of the day is still God in the night. Aren't you glad? I'll find it. There it is. I was thinking about that song, Beulah Land. How many of us have heard that song so many different times? And that song's only been around about 20 years. Compared to a lot of the hymns that have been around a lot longer than that, obviously some of them hundreds of years. Written by an old West Virginia boy, last I heard, Squire Parsons. Boy, had to have one West Virginia song in there somewhere. More and more as I traveled this life, I made fun of myself and didn't realize it the other day. I said to somebody, well, no, I'm not really 61, I'm just 35 with 15 years experience. And then I realized that I was really 45 with 16 years experience. And this coming year it'll be even more. I can't believe that. Somebody's getting old. It must be me. I guess so. You might ask, if somebody asked me, well, how's the Dreamin' doing? The Dreamin' are hanging in there doing their thing, I guess. Last I talked to somebody. And but Big John had another infection in his foot just about the time he did about a year ago. Another real bad infection, had to go to the hospital. And I understand he's back home now with a large dose of antibiotics and stuff and recuperating. And bless their hearts, what a mess, I'll tell you right now. But we're still friends, and I think we always will be. And if you're going to have a friend, you better have a big one like him. Amen. And you want somebody like that on your side. And but I got somebody bigger than that.
Amen.
His name is Jesus. I need you, Lord, like a man in the desert with a dream just to help him survive. I need you, Lord, like a fire in the winter makes a little old child come alive. I need you, Lord, when I'm tired of the struggle and it's too tough to walk all alone. But I just can't make it by myself, I just can't make it by myself. No, I just can't make it by myself. It must take a lot to get my attention. I refuse to say I was wrong. Everything I touched fell apart until it was gone. sitting in the rubble, I came to my senses and a voice said, child, let me help. I said, please do, cause I just can't make it by myself. I need you, Lord, like a fire in the winter makes a little cold child come alive. I need you, Lord, like a fire in the winter makes a little cold child come alive. I need you, Lord, when I'm tired of struggle and it's too tough to walk alone. Cause I just can't make it by myself, I just can't make it by myself. No, I just can't make it by myself. Now a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do, but he doesn't have to do it alone. I did it my way, and let me tell you, it's a dead-end street. I thought it was tough till the going got rough, and I lost everything that I own. I admitted, Lord, all I got myself was defeat. I need you, Lord, like a man in the desert strength just to help survive. I need you, Lord, like a fire in the winter makes a little old child come alive. I need you, Lord, when I'm tired of the struggle and it's too tough to walk on the road. Cause I just can't make it by myself, I just can't make it by myself. No, I just can't make it by myself. I need you, Lord, like a man in the desert needs a drink to help survive. I need you, Lord, like a fire in the winter makes a little old child come alive. I need you, Lord, when I'm tired of the struggle and it's too tough to walk alone. Cause I just can't make it by myself, I just can't make it by myself. No, I just can't make it by myself. Can't do it. I have one more I'd like to do right now. People say, what have you been doing since you left the group? Well, I've been doing a lot of thoughtful stuff. Thinking, I guess, is what I've been doing, and praying, and taking a sabbatical. I think that's what it said on the website, taking a sabbatical. And I don't know exactly what that means, except that you take time out from the regular stuff you do all the time and try to spend some time with the Lord. And at least that's what I've been trying to do, and say, Lord, what do you want me to do next? I've been, we was talking about, he said, well, how long have you been traveling? About 42 years that I've been traveling the road, and my body's starting to feel like it. And as much as I love the traveling, let me rephrase that, as much as I love the ministry, the traveling got old. Now, when I was young, like these girls, man, I like to travel everywhere. And like Kelsey, she's starting to drive now, and even though that Mom and I are scared, we let her drive sometimes. And but I used to love to drive. I didn't care what it was. I didn't care if it was a pickup truck or a tractor or a bus, a car, it didn't matter. I just loved to drive. And now, what have I done this past weekend? I've let you drive just about everywhere, to your amazement. Yes, and I've learned that there's not a straight road in West Virginia. If there is, I've not found it yet, and I don't want to say that you're a bad driver, you're just a fast driver. That's the best way I can do it. And we had, Kelsey and I were in the back seats of the van on the way here, was it Friday night, I think it was. And I tried to fall asleep. I really did. And I just about did until we hit West Virginia. Then it was up and down, around and around. I'm not being critical about West Virginia, it just is what it is. And then we got in this back road of 23, is it? Have you ever been down 23 over here?
Oh, yeah.
Did you all know what I'm talking about? If you can drive there, you can drive anywhere. I think we straightened out pieces of that road. I'm not quite sure. Friday night, about scared me to death. You never know what the Lord's going to do with you, and I think that I'm figuring out what sanctification is. You know what sanctification is? I've been reading about sanctification. And for me, sanctification, it finally came to me, it's giving God line item veto in your life. Now that's a hard struggling thing to do for me, because I've been a control freak most of my life. I'll tell you about that in a minute, but I have been. And but I realize that for everything there's a season. The Bible talks about that. And man, it's hard to let people go. I
I mean, it really is. I mean, I have friends that I've had through the years, and they've gone home to be with the Lord. I looked at my grandmother, who was 94, I think, or 95 when she passed away. Hard to let Grandma go, but even harder for my grandmother to let two daughters and 2 or 3 of her sons go. She had 9 of them, and she outlived a good bunch of them. But how hard that must have been. I've been painting for a living. I wish I could say I was painting murals and all that kind of stuff and making good money, but the fact of the matter is I've been painting churches, and matter of fact, we'll start one this week, and houses, and interior and exterior caulking, and all the things that you do as a painter. And I've been doing that for quite a long time. And it's amazing to me how God brings people into your lives that you would not expect, no matter what you do. My mom was kind of laughing at Mom talking to Pam last night. My mom likes to talk. Now, she can talk, and then she can talk some more. But when you talk with Mom, she's got something to say. And the unusual people God puts in your life. I remember this one place called the Orchard that we have painted, and it's just a bunch of townhouses. But I get to meet a lot of different people from different walks of life. Some of them are talented, like you, that can play the piano. And some of them, I met this fisherman that he's caught bass that are just so big, and got some of them on his wall. And I met this one brother and his wife, Bob, and his wife name is Wava. How I got to know them is Miss Wava wanted her kitchen painted. So my buddy and I, we went into her kitchen, and she had some paint picked out from a splotch. And we painted it. And it looked good. But it wasn't what she wanted. So she found another splotch. And we painted it again. Folks, with my hand raised, we painted that thing 5 times. Finally, her husband, who's about a little guy like you and me, he says, "Boys," he said, "I think that's enough paint on that wall." And he told her, he said, "That's it, honey. It's going to be whatever green green is right now." But apparently she got it in her mind that she wanted the exact same green as some friend of hers across town. And if we'd have known that, we'd have ripped some of that paper off there, brought it with us, we would have got the color she wanted. Anyway, I said that to say this, her husband, he's a great guy, loved the Lord, and he passed away this past week. And I remember when we came to paint her building, that she was just stepping out of her car about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I could see she was upset. It was just her and her son, who was crippled, and a granddaughter. And she come up, her head down. She said, "Boys, Bob has passed." And I couldn't think of anything to say. I really couldn't. You know, you want to say, "Well, I'm sorry for your loss," or there's something that you want to say. But you see, I knew he was a believer, a fellow believer, and I knew that he really wasn't laying in that hospital or laying in that morgue or whatever it is. I knew that he was already home with the Lord. So I did the only thing that I could think of to do, which is what somebody did to me when I went through one of the most horrible times in my life. Because I just opened my arms up, and she walked up and started to weep. And that's the only thing I could think of to do. Because it was the kindest thing that anybody ever did with me. And I know Bob will be able to relate to this. Maybe some of us will too. It's appointed unto men once to die, but then the judgment. She closed her eyes one night, never here to awake again. But everything was alright between her and him. She awoke in heaven's courtyard, free from pain within. Then the angels gathered round her and took her by the hand, serenaded by angels, up to the throne, serenaded by angels,
finally at home, surrounded by praises to the King. Welcome to paradise, the angels did sing. Now I close my eyes at night and I try to imagine that city of brilliant light that's waiting for me. Though my mind can't quite conceive, yet I'll continue to believe till I'm transported there. Then I will be serenaded by angels up to the throne, serenaded by angels, finally at home, surrounded by praises to the King. Welcome to paradise, the angels will sing, serenaded by angels up to the throne, serenaded by angels, finally at home, surrounded by praises to the King. Welcome to paradise, the angels will sing. Welcome to paradise, the angels will sing, serenaded by angels. What a time that's going to be. I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine. Boy, I've had a hard time trying to figure out what I want to speak about today. And I was all ready to talk about a certain scripture, about the time that Jesus was on the cross and there was somebody on his left and somebody on his right. And one believed and the other one didn't. And one made it to heaven and the other one didn't. That's what I was going to talk about today. But you did something. You messed me up. I'm sure you messed up more than one person around here. But you did something when you was up here, you just went like this.
Yes.
Now, that reminded me of my preacher when I was growing up. I was just a little boy, well, probably like Michael was, maybe 8, 10, maybe not even that old. I can't remember now. That's a long time ago. But I remember my preacher standing up about the same way. Of course, he was better looking than you, but he was all right. And now, I got to pick on you. It wouldn't be right. Now, actually, he was just taller than you, but I remember the gray hair. That's what really got it, the gray hair. And Brother Anderson, he came out from someplace out east. Now, I don't know if it was Connecticut or New Jersey, but someplace out east. And he came to our town, Flint, Michigan, and he started a church. Now, he didn't have a building like this to meet in. As a matter of fact, when he started the church, it was in a 2-car garage. The first thing they'd have to do, of course, is get the cars out. Then they'd clean up the floor and scrape off all the good and stuff off it. And then they would put down some chairs, folding chairs. And that's where we met at church for a long time. Until finally we got a building and things progressed from there. But I remember that Brother Anderson would come
down this dirt road. He had a 1960 something, I want to say a Bel Air or a Biscayne, or how many can remember what I'm talking about here? I'll make sure I'm in the right crowd. Anyway, it was some kind of Chevrolet, big boat. My son would call it a big boat, what he would call it. And but he would come down our dirt road, and somehow, I don't know if he had knocked on the door or whatever, but he started asking families, would you like to send your kids to church? We'd love to have them come to Sunday school. Now, his wife was like you. She could play the piano and sing. I mean, love to hear Mrs. Anderson. And if I got any abilities that's in me at all, it came and started from there. She's the one that taught me how to sing parts. And she beat it out on the piano time after time until I finally figured out that's what the alto part, which was great because I was, a kid and I could sing alto. And then about age 14 or 15, something happened. But Mrs. Anderson and Mr. Anderson, they'd come and they'd get a carload of us kids, take us to the garage, to the church. And when we learned Sunday school, what we call Sunday school songs at that time, deep and wide, deep, deep and wide, there's a fountain. Anyway, I remember that. And hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. I didn't know you went to my church. Cool. But we would learn all those Sunday school songs. We had a great time doing it. And Brother Anderson, he was pretty straight about things, though. I mean, he could be fun, really, but his wife was a little bit more, and he had a son named Dale. He played the piano, too, and ended up being a missionary to France. How do you be a missionary in France? Escargot and all that stuff. I don't understand that. French pastries. But I remember that he would come down our street and pick a bunch of us kids up and drop us off, and then we'd learn those Sunday school songs. And then he'd go back down another dirt road and pick some more up. And we didn't have at the beginning of our church very many older folks. As a matter of fact, I don't remember that there were there was about 4 or 5 of them, I guess. They were old, about 35 or so. And age 35 is what I was talking about. And I thought about that, how that we got that meager start in that church. And then I grew up in the church. And one day, my mom and dad started to come. Now, normally you would think it'd be the other way around. Mom and dad would come, and then when the kids came, they'd automatically start coming. But that's not the way it worked in our family. It was only later that I asked Mom and Dad, well, why did you start coming to church? And Dad said, well, it's because we thought we ought to find out what's going on there. I mean, as long as we're sending you, we better find out what they're teaching you. And I said, well, why all those other years did you not go to church? He said, well, gee, it's like this. He said, we went to this church out in the country in Thunder, Michigan. And I won't say what kind of church it was, but I have been there since then. It's a church about this size. And Dad and Mom came right shortly after they got married, and they sat about where that good-looking couple is right there, about 2 from the back there. They sat down with that gentleman in the nice blue jacket is. I like that tie, by the way. I'll see about that later. But sat right about there, and in come this lady. You might have met her before. I'm sure every church has at least one, it seems like. Her name was Sister Better Than You. And she'd come up. She tapped my dad on the shoulder and said, you're sitting in my seat. Dad looked at her and said, what did you say? I said, you're sitting in my seat. Dad and Mom got out, and they left the church right then and there, and never came back. I'm sure there's nobody like that in this church. But how easily we get caught getting into the same place all the time. If you really want to mess this preacher up, sit to the opposite side next week. Right. Mess him up. He won't know where to look to get his response from. But that's what Dad said. He said he wanted to find out what was going on in the church. And then they started to come with us. Instead of waiting for the preacher to come down our dirt road, pick us up, then Dad and Mom started taking us to church, which is kind of cool. And then my brother came along, and then my other brother came along, and finally my sister came along on Christmas Eve, which we didn't appreciate that very much. But looking back through the years, I saw things. When you grow up in church, it's different than coming outside the church. I'm not like Big John who had a testimony about certain things that happened in his life. I can't say that as I was growing up, a lot of bad things happened. I can say this, that we were poor and didn't know it. Dad and Mom both started working, as a lot of people did. They came and started working in the factories at the Buick and Chevrolet and the AC factory where they make spark plugs and filters and all those kind of things. And Mom worked one and Dad worked the other. But about 19, I think it was 55 or so, they had a big, well, they went on a strike, I guess it was. A big strike back about that time. And with 5 kids, Mom and Dad didn't have any extra. As a matter of fact, like I said, I didn't realize we were poor until one night as we were sitting there watching our big black and white TV on the little screen. And some people knocked on the door. And Mom opened the door, and they almost kind of shoved their way in. Big old sack of groceries, paper sack, none of them plastic things. We didn't have the plastic back then. Paper sacks, and boxes, and cans of food, and cereal, and just all kinds of stuff that they brought in. Noodles, and I'm looking at Mom, I'm wondering what's going on. I said, Mom, what are they doing? Of course, she was just tearing up and, trying to get me out to talk to her. And then I realized that these were our neighbors coming to bring us food, and I didn't know we didn't have much food left. But Mom knew. So that's how I grew up. That's the worst part of things I could think of in my life during that time. So as I grew up in church, I became involved more and more with the leadership of our young people, and I ended up being, by the time I was, I think, a junior, sophomore, something like that, ended up being president of the young people in our little church. Now, it wasn't very big. We didn't have a lot of people, but we had about 20-something young people that went to our church. It was really cool. And I was the president. That was cool. I could tell everybody what to do, including my sister, who was the only time I could tell her what to do. She's just 2 years behind me. And then I started going to what they call Youth for Christ, or we call it VCY, Victorious Christian Youth, but it was like Youth for Christ. Anybody remember Youth for Christ over this way? Did you have it out here in West Virginia? And what it was is a nationwide organization of youth that would get together from different schools, and then they would come to like a certain school, like in an auditorium or something, and they would have their own skits and band and all kinds of stuff was going on and singing, and then usually a leader of some type would come up and give a message, an invitation to accept the Lord as their Savior. And that was cool. I said, I like that. If I can be president of that, I can do something else. So in my high school, we started having our own Youth for Christ. And we started out with just a few people, and we kept going and kept going and kept going, and finally we took up the whole choir room. There must have been 50 or 60 that started coming from our school for Youth for Christ. And I became president of Youth for Christ in my high school. I was so cool. So I had 2 things that I was doing. Then they had this youth choir for Youth for Christ. And I like to sing, so I said, that's cool. Let me be part of that. So I was area council officer for the whole city with Youth for Christ and president in my own high school, and I started singing in this choir. And then this group called the Templaires out of the Flint Baptist Temple. They were breaking into the scene, getting ready to go big time. As a matter of fact, you ever heard of the Cathedral Quartet? Anybody heard of the Cathedral? 2 of the guys ended up going to the Cathedral Quartet. They asked me to join them and sing with them. I said, well, sure. Oh, was I ever puffed up. I was doing good. I was Mr. Big Shot. At least I thought so. Mom and Dad didn't want to put up with me being such a big shot, so instead of making me buy my own car, they let me use theirs. Now, that was a mistake. I run the fire off that thing, boy, I'll tell you. But usually what I do is I do like the preacher did. I'd go pick up some young people, and we'd go to one of those places. Sometimes we would go to a roller skating party or something, but, that was part of my, because I got to drive a car, so I was getting all pumped up about that. And then I remember also, let me back up just a little bit, I remember also that you got prizes at the church if you would do things like learn scriptures and learn the books of the Bible. Now, I'm not good at memorization. I'll tell you right now, I'm not good at it. But I remember the books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 1 Kings, 1 Chronicles. And I just kept going, I kept going, and to this day I practice sometimes, to be honest with you, because as I get older I realize I got to practice more. But I learned all the books of the Bible, so they gave me a Bible. And I said, well, that's cool. I got a Bible. And so I started marking passages and things in there that I thought were really good and would be useful. And as a Youth for Christ, I got to go to this big place. It was a new place called the Renaissance Building in downtown Detroit. It was the thing at the time. And so I would have this questionnaire on a clipboard, and I'd go around and ask him, do you know Jesus Christ is your Savior? Would you like to? And so I got to go around and ask people questions, and as I'd ask these questions, and then I'd say, well, have you ever heard of the 4 spiritual laws? And I would ask them, have you ever accepted Christ as your Savior? Did you ever ask Him into your heart? And so I did that. And everything was going good, and the preacher finally says to me, well, listen, you know, you're a senior this year. You better think about going to Bible school. And I thought to myself, yeah, I'll go to Bible school. Well, I didn't go to the one that he wanted me to go to, but I went to Midwestern Baptist College and Seminary in Pontiac, Michigan. It was an independent, fundamental, King James only Baptist. What I didn't realize is that when I went to that school, you couldn't hold hands with a girl. Maybe they let you hold hands with a boy, but they didn't let you hold hands with a girl. I can tell you that. And you had to have your hair cut just a certain way, and you had what they call white walls around there. You couldn't let your hair touch your ear or touch your collar. And I wasn't even on campus. I was driving back and forth to school every day, an hour each way. Well, I thought that was pretty good until they kicked me out. No, that's true. I did get kicked out. I probably should. I mean, I tried not to get kicked out, but I wanted to talk to them about my hair because, you know, that was back in the late 60s, and the hair was coming down. By the 70s, it was really down. And so when I talked to the Dean of Men, I said, he said, Young, I'll see you in my office later. I said, well, that's good. I'd like to talk to you about that. He said, you ain't talking to me about nothing. They were very strict. Did I make that plain? So he said, listen, we can't have you being this kind of influence in our school. That's insubordination. You're trying to talk to me about something that's in the rules. We make rules. And I was out. And they had 2 great big seniors about this tall escort me off the premises. So that was the time we had those big CDs, you know, those 33 1/3s. And I had them out in some of my friends because I wanted them listening to good gospel music. So I had them passed out to a couple of different guys and people in the school. So I told the big seniors, they all knew about me. Everybody knew me there because I sang the group right there at the church and at the college. They all knew who I was. I played the trombone. I was big stuff. So I said, come on, boys, come with me. And we went through the halls. They had to follow me through the halls. I said, hey, I need my records back. I got to leave. So I went to 3 or 4 classrooms and picked up some of my records from some of my friends. And then they finally escorted me all the way off. Then I went to Philadelphia College of Bible. I transferred. I don't know why they took me there, and I went to school in Philadelphia. I went to a Bible college there, and I felt pretty good about that because they let me do stuff I wanted to do. I didn't learn anything. My classes weren't that great, but I'll tell you what, they let me be part of an outreach group that we got to go out into the different churches on behalf of the school. You know, and advertise the school. Listen to us sing. Listen to us speak. You send your kids to our school, this is what you can turn out like. Just good like me. It was wonderful. As a matter of fact, we had a group that 3 of us were part of it. And remember Peter, Paul, and Mary? I'm leaving on the jet plane. Oh, you probably don't remember that. Anyway, we had a group that was so good, 3 of us. And the one guy played the guitar, the other girl, she sounded like Mary. I mean, she really did. I don't know who I sounded like. But I remember we sang at a church basement, like a coffee house thing, to a bunch of young people. And we were singing and doing our, like, leaving on the jet plane stuff, and then we threw some gospel in with it. And I remember the kids saying, okay, behind the curtain, you've got a record going or something. I thought, ooh, what good. We sound like a record. Well, you see, I kept getting puffed up and puffed up and puffed up. Until I got a letter from Uncle Sam. Now, I remember this was the late 60s. Vietnam was going full barrel, and they needed everybody they could get to go over. So they volunteered me to go. And then my mom got the biggest laugh of her life because they made me a medic. The reason that was a laugh to Mom is because I hate needles. Today, I hate needles. I don't like giving them. I don't like giving them. I still don't like it. What got me not liking needles as much as that I thought it hurt when the doctor would do it, as I saw a doctor bend a needle over in half when they gave my brother a shot once. That did it for me. I didn't like needles, but they made me a medic, and so I did what I had to do. And then they sent me eventually to Vietnam. That was different. That was different. As a matter of fact, I'll be honest with you, and I haven't told Pam this, but I've been having some difficulties with it lately. It's things that I can remember, and things that I think I can remember, and things I don't want to remember. Why it's taken this long for that to start bothering me? Maybe it's because of Iraq and Afghanistan and seeing the boys and the girls come back and all that. I can't tell you why. I just know that I just tell you it's bothering me. But the neat thing is that I think that all this time God has given me some things in my mind to be able to forget things that would really destroy me, of things that happened or that I think may have happened. But I remember when I was laying there in a hospital bed, I've got a really bad infection in my arm until it swelled up about the size of my leg. You couldn't see my elbow from here to here. It was just one big, huge mass from some punching, which is very infectious stuff. And I remember I finally got that taken care of. They had, being a man, I don't know, it's probably about gross if you haven't ate breakfast, have you? Some of you know. And anyway, they had to cut a hole in my arm and then squeeze and let the infection out, and that's when I passed out. And then I was about got that fixed, and I was about to go out on the helicopter for another mission, and I started getting dizzy. Has anybody here been dizzy before? You know what I mean? If you've never been dizzy, you can't really understand it. But you can't hardly stand up. And so I was trying to get to the helicopter, and the helicopter's over there, and I'm walking sideways. Well, the sergeant got hold of me and said, "Young, what's wrong with you?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "But I better go to the boys' room," you know, which was that outhouse you're talking about. That's what they had. And while I was in there, I about passed out, tried to come back out again and started to stagger around again. And the next thing I know, they had me on the helicopter, taking me to a hospital, field hospital, and took me there. And that's okay, I'll get it for you later, honey. But that's what they did. They took me. Now, the ironic thing for me is that because I was a medic, before I went to Vietnam, I would go in an ambulance, and if you've seen MASH, you watch MASH on TV, well, I would go out to the airfield and pick up the people and take them back to the hospital. And now they were taking me back to the hospital. I thought, that's ironic. I'm laying there in a hospital bed. My temperature is spiking about 106. I had malaria. Now, I know as a medic, you start getting around 106, around 107, that it scrambles your brain. I also knew that if I died, well, if I didn't die, I'd be a vegetable. If I did, they kept going, and eventually I would die. And many died because of that. And the strangest thing happened to me. As I was being escorted into this shower room, and they set me on a metal chair. And as I sat there in the metal chair, they turned on the shower, a cold shower. Like I said, I had a temperature really high. And when that shower would hit me, then it would feel cold for about a minute. Then it just felt like a normal shower. That's the way I remember. But I remember laying there in a hospital bed, a little Vietnamese nurse come walking by the end of my bed. She looked at me and she started to cry. I realized I must not look very good. Something definitely wrong. And I remember the doctors over the edge of my bed saying to each other, if we don't get his temperature down, I knew what the rest of it was. They weren't going to get a whole lot of hope. They were pumping me full of fluids. They did everything they could. And then I remember all these things that I did. I said, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. So am I ready to meet the Lord? Am I really ready to meet the Lord? Now, I knew this Bible pretty good. I've had this Bible since college. In Matthew, it talks about when this person stood before the Lord, they said, didn't I prophesy in your name? Didn't I do honorable things? Didn't I give money in the tithe? And didn't I do nice things for people and help them? I mean, I told people about you, Lord. I prophesied. I mean, I led people to the Lord. I could stand up and I could preach, and I could stand up and I could sing, and I could take the offering up, and I could play my trombone, and I could do all these things. But I remember there's also a part that says, and the Lord looks down in the book of life, and all those that are written in the book of life have heaven, those that don't have hell. And everything I read about heaven, I wanted. Everything about hell, I didn't. And I realized at that moment, I had done all these things. I grew up in church. Everything was wonderful. Everybody thought I was just a wonderful guy. But I had never actually given my heart to the Lord. Had all the trappings, had all the looks of it. I can do it. I can pray with the best of them. And so I said the only way I could. I said, Lord, I don't know if I'm going to face you or not, but I know if I do, I want to face you with confidence that I got heaven to look forward to. Please forgive me of my sin. Come into my life. And if I die, I die. And if not, I'll try to live for you the best I can. Well, obviously, I'm still here. And if you were, from then till now, watch a movie up here of my life, I got to tell you, I think I'd probably be down underneath that pew because I don't deserve to stand up here to sing. I don't deserve to stand up here to preach. I don't deserve to stand here for any reason. But I realized that if they took a movie of your life, maybe you'd be down under there, under the pew with me. So I go ahead and speak anyhow. Not because I deserve it, because I know what I deserve. Thank God for amazing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. And one day, I'll end up with this. How many stay another half hour? You stay by yourself. I'm going to eat. But I read this scripture once. It's found in Psalms 116. It says, I love the Lord, because he has heard my voice and my supplication, because he has inclined his ear unto me. Therefore will I call upon him as long as I live. And here's my testimony. The sorrows of death compassed me, and the pains of hell got a hold of me, and I found myself in trouble and sorrow. Then I called upon the name of the Lord. O Lord, I beseech thee, deliver my soul. Gracious is the Lord and righteous. Yea, our God is merciful. He preserves the simple. I was brought low, and he helped me. And then over and over again, that starting on about, verse 14 or so, it says, I will pay my vows unto the Lord now in the presence of all his people. It says it again in verse 18, I will pay my vows unto the Lord now in the presence of all his peoples. I know I'm not the greatest singer. I know I'm not the greatest preacher. He didn't ask me to do that. He didn't ask you to do that. What he does ask is to share our story. If God has done something in your life, share your story. That's what he asked you to do. He didn't ask you to go to Bible school, although he might. He didn't ask you to be a missionary, although he might. He didn't ask you to be a Sunday school teacher or to sing in the choir, although he might. He said, just tell people what I've done for you. Tell your story. Oh, of course, there's a lot more story from then from now. I can tell you a lot more. But the main thing is, Psalm 116, I will pay my vows now to the Lord in the presence of his people. That's why I stand up. That's why I try to be heard. It's not my voice. It's not my message. I am just the messenger. I want to point you to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Pay your vows. If you made promises to God, pay your vows. It may be that you have a testimony of what God has done in your life somehow. You can't have a testimony if you've never had a test. I know Dina Lynn's been through some tests, for example. She'd be glad to tell you about it. We've all been there. I wish I could play the piano like you. I wish I could preach as good as you. I wish I was good looking as you. I should have said that. But we don't have to be the best looking. We don't have to be the most talented. We just need to tell our story. And if I have any message to bring you today, tell your story. Do it the best you can and share it with somebody. Because I guarantee there's somebody there that needs to hear it. And only you can tell your story. Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for today. We're going to take communion now. It's not about us. It's not about the wine. It's not about the crackers. It's not about any of that. It's all about you. And we do this in remembrance of you. And the reason I stand and sing, the reason I stand and speak is because of you. Lord, may we pay our vows now in the presence of his people. Thank you for giving me a story. In Jesus' name, everybody said amen.